Here's an article from Axios.com. I'm going to read the headline in my own way because this is a family-friendly show. Data shows the rent is still too dang high.
Oh, yeah. It says the average American household is now considered rent burden, with a record share of renters spending more than 30% of income on rent each month. This is a painful surge for many, coming at a time when inflation has driven up the cost of food and energy costs. Credit card debt is rising, spending is falling, and there's a shift in spending to more necessary items rather than luxury-type purchases. Well, that's good.
That's a good thing.
But rents are sticky. They are likely to climb much further.
They aren't likely to climb.
They aren't likely to. Oh, gosh, thank God.
That's good. I got spooked.
But don't expect them to fall much from where they are now.
And, of course, the surge in home prices in the housing market has pushed this number up. And, you know, inflation, supply and demand, a lot of factors here. But at the end of the day, it's just a lot of frustrated everyday people going like, this is insane. My rent went up, another $600. And I can't do anything about it. And so we wanted to give you guys some practical things you can do. There's no magic trick here. There's no silver bullet. I'm not going to give you some life hack. These are all things that take compromise, sacrifice. They're not fun, but it will put you in a better financial situation.
Yeah, and we just empathize because we got team members here who've had to move because it's like all of a sudden their landlord raised their rent or their apartment complex raised their rent $400, $600, which that's a lot even for somebody who's budgeting, who's living on a budget and being disciplined with their money. It's pretty painful to see those numbers, but we do want to give you hope because there are strategies around that.
Yeah, I mean, right here where our headquarters is, Franklin, Tennessee, Williamson County, I think it's the 10th or 11th wealthiest county in the nation. And so if you work in this area, it's hard to live in this area. And Dave always jokes about when he was a kid, he lived on the other side of the tracks, miles away, going like, oh, well, that's where the rich people live. And, cost of living is a real issue. And a lot of people who live on the coast, if you live in the Bay Area or you live in New York or Boston or New Jersey, you feel this pain when you're not making $300,000 as someone who works at Google or someone who just got laid off from Google, more likely. And you're going, what do I do when I make $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 and I still have this crazy high rent?
Well, and some people kind of just close their eyes and they kind of make the excuse that like there's no other option. I hesitate to say excuse because it's like I feel for y'all and I feel for people in this situation, but the option is not to stick your head in the sand and go, well, I got to spend 50% of my income on rent because it's like that has very long-term consequences. So we want you to be super strategic and really think through, even though this is crazy and the market is crazy and it's unfortunate, like what can we do?
So for starters, if you are single, this is especially hard for you because you don't have, the possibility of dual income where you have both spouses working, which really helps cover that rent number. And so you might need to go get a roommate and do that in a safe way, of course. Vet people through Facebook communities, mutual friends, and see if you can cut all of your expenses in half by doing that. I know it's not fun. If you're a grown adult, to try to get a roommate in your late 20s, 30s, even 40s is hard. And it feels awkward. But if it cuts your expenses in half and allows you to pay off debt and build wealth, then it's worth it for a season.
Yeah, and another thing is to shop around. So one, if you cannot be in a hurry when you need to move, that's great. If you can give yourself a little bit of runway, if you know that your lease is going to be up in 4 months or even in 2 months and that your landlord may raise your rent, start thinking about that right now and start thinking about, are there other places in the area and do your research. So we actually sold our house last year and we decided we wanted to rent for, a bit while we moved down here and kind of figured out where we wanted to live. And I shopped around like crazy. And I'm going to be real honest, y'all. The rent deal we found was bonkers. But I largely think it was because I kind of got pretty obsessed with the research process. And now I look at the cost and I'm like, that is actually crazy. So, look for those diamonds in the rough. Don't just go, I like this glamorous complex that has this really cool pool.
The granite countertops, the hardwood floors, it's been renovated. That may be out of the budget right now.
Right. And you may get a way better deal down the street for somewhere that's still really great, but just way more in your budget.
And the other thing is go further down the street, literally further out of the expensive areas. And yes, there may be somewhat of a commute. Instead of a 15-minute, it may be 30 minutes, but that's worth it if you can save $400 a month. And the other piece of this is a lot of people are now working remotely. So if you're one of those people, you have the opportunity to live anywhere. Let me remind you. And while it's ideal to live in downtown Manhattan, it may be more ideal financially to be further out in Astoria,
George, I'm hesitant for you to say that because I'm like, that means more people are going to come to Tennessee.
Come on down. Hey, they're going to be here anyways, not because I told them to.
Oh, man, our costs have
and now it's
increased
too
so
expensive
much.
to live here. So they're like, I'm going further out. But there are things you can do. And again, none of these are like ideal silver bullets. And hopefully the market comes back down and cools off a little bit and we'll slowly see those rent prices come down. But for now, we also can go make more income. And so if you are making 30 and you feel like you've been in this thing too long, you should be making more. Go apply for those new jobs, sharpen up the resume. Our friend Ken Coleman has some great resources at his website, kencoleman.com, to help you with that. But if you can make 50 instead of 30, well, that changes the numbers now, and we can breathe. And lastly, getting out of debt will help you breathe when it comes to affording your rent. One of the reasons rent feels so crazily high is because you also have $700, $800 in payments on this side because of your student loans, your car payments, the credit card payments, the personal loans. It all adds up.
Well, and just really making sure that you're buckling down on your budget. Like we're pretty intense with our budget, but we've been doing this no spend month, and it's been crazy looking at the numbers of how much we saved. Like we thought we were pretty tight on our budget, and at the end of the month, we are saving so much money. Like we thought we couldn't eat on $100 a week, and we did it. And we found all these other ways to save. So it's like, even if you are on a budget, like really evaluate it deeply and see if there's anywhere else you can cut so that you have a little bit of breathing room.
And that's a great reminder, Christina. Our parameters as far as rent or mortgage goes is no more than 25% of your after-tax income. And so if that's you and you're doing the numbers, you're going, my rent is $1,500 and I take home $3,000. Well, that's 50% of your income being eaten up. It's going to be hard to live and to build wealth and to save and to pay off that debt and to put food on the table, to put eggs on the table, when that much of your life is being eaten up by the rent. And so we've got to find a solution and go, all right, we need a roommate, we need to move further out, and we need to get on a budget. And so you can jump onto Every Dollar. That's our budgeting tool. You can use it for free and start to crunch these numbers and figure out where we can shave some expenses. How can we figure out how to afford the expenses we really need and figure out what the needs are versus the wants. And we want the nice apartment, but that might be down the line. Once we're out of debt and we increase our income, and maybe one day we won't have that pesky roommate leaving the dishes in the sink. That's a tough one for me, Christina.
Yeah, that is tough.
I'm glad I have a roommate now, and it's my wife. Best roommate I've ever had. Gosh, no more dudes. Just the dudes. Get it together, guys.